Sound wasn't supposed to exist in the vacuum of space. Yet, it echoed across the bridge of the Kyxen, reverberating like a lost memory returning unbidden. It was a deep, subtle frequency, but it carried something inexplicable. There were no words, but the emotions that accompanied the sound were unmistakable. Loss, urgency, a call to something far beyond comprehension. "This isn't normal interference," said Era, her eyes fixed on the holographic readings before her. The linguistic specialist seemed absorbed by the complexity of the signal, her fingers gliding over the controls. "Captain, there's a pattern here. Something unnatural." Captain Voratuinen observed silently, his face etched with the experience of countless dangerous missions. He didn't respond immediately. Deep down, he knew Era was right, and that unsettled him. They were in a region of space unexplored for generations, far beyond the borders of any known civilization. The sound shouldn't exist here, and everything suggested that answering it would be a mistake. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had been deliberately drawn to this exact point. Chief Engineer Lem Reg, ever the skeptic, broke the silence. "Captain, this is a trap. You know that, don't you? These things never end well." He adjusted his equipment with nervous hands as the sound seemed to burrow deeper into their minds. "We've seen signals like this before. Promises of grand discoveries that end in disaster. What if it's not?" Era countered quickly, not even glancing at Lem. "What if this is something lost? Something we need to understand?" Her voice was firm, but the uncertainty in her eyes betrayed the weight of what she was asking. Before any decision could be made, the sound shifted. Not into words, but into an image projected directly into the space before them. A colossal structure, floating among the stars. Its form was both incomprehensible and mesmerizing, as though it defied the known laws of physics. Lines of energy coursed along its surface, pulsing as if imitating a heartbeat. Vora rose to his feet, his gaze locked on the image. "Set a course for it," he ordered, even as his instincts screamed at him to pull back. "If this is a warning or a message, we can't ignore it." Era hesitated for a moment before stepping closer to the projection, almost as if she were being called. "Captain, this isn't just a message," she whispered. "It's a door." As the Kyxen nears the structure, the silence within the ship becomes almost palpable. The holographic image that once seemed distant now materializes before their eyes. The artifact is far larger than the initial readings suggested. A hive of metallic rings slowly spinning around a pulsating core. Despite its abandoned appearance, there's something undeniably alive about it. Vora watches the screen, tense. "Maintain a safe trajectory," he orders, even as a chill runs down his spine. As the ship draws closer, the readings grow inconsistent. The sensors pick up energy fluctuations that mimic the rhythm of a human heartbeat. Lem attempts to stabilize the systems, but his efforts are futile. "This thing is messing with our ship like it's part of it," he says, frustration rising in his voice. Era, on the other hand, notices a pattern in the anomalies, something familiar yet incomplete. "This isn't random interference," she says softly. "It's like it's studying us." A spiraling corridor opens on the surface of the artifact, like a flower blooming for the Kyxen. Vora decides to send an exploration team and personally leads the incursion alongside Era and Lem. Despite his reluctance, the engineer equips himself with protective and analytical gear. "If this turns out to be a trap, I want to be ready to shut it all down," he says, holding an experimental EMP pulse device. Era ignores Lem's distrustful tone, her focus on what they might discover. As they pass through the entrance, it becomes clear that the artifact is more than a mere construction. It's a living organism. The corridors are made of materials that seem to shift upon touch, alternating between metallic surfaces and something resembling synthetic skin. Soft lights pulse along the walls, as if the artifact is responding to the crew's presence. Era reaches out to touch one of the surfaces, and the material molds around her fingers, glowing briefly. "It's like it's welcoming us," she says in awe. As they advance, each crew member begins to experience visions seemingly emanating from the artifact itself. Vora sees a battlefield where thousands of human ships float as wreckage, while a distant voice whispers, "You chose isolation." Lem, on the other hand, is haunted by memories of his family, but something feels off, as though the memories have been altered. Era sees something entirely different. Galaxies intertwined with lines of light, a glimpse of a connected universe. Each vision carries an emotional weight that starts to wear on the team. They arrive in a vast chamber at the heart of the artifact, where a sphere floats, emitting a steady glow. Lines of energy run from the sphere to the walls, forming intricate patterns that shift as they watch. Is this a database? A power source? Lem asks, unable to hide his curiosity behind his skepticism. Era, however, senses something far deeper. It's more than that, she says, almost entranced. It's memory, and it wants to show us. As Era approaches the sphere, it emits a pulse of light, projecting holograms around them. The images show humanoid and alien figures gathered around a similar structure, connected by filaments of light running between them. An indistinct voice echoes, "You were once part of this. Now you must remember." The words leave the crew puzzled, but before they can react, the sphere projects a new set of images, this time showing a catastrophe. The lines of light are severed, civilizations fragment, and chaos consumes everything. As the sphere continues projecting images, the crew attempts to decipher their meaning. Era, still captivated by what she sees, realizes that the lines of light represent more than simple communication. These connections, they're not just symbolic. They're real, she says, reaching out to touch the projection. Vora furrows his brow. Real how? Era hesitates before responding. It's like they're a bridge, a direct link between minds, between species. Lem, however, grows increasingly suspicious. He watches the projections with a mix of curiosity and fear. You're seeing this as something pure, but you're blind to the danger. Connections can be used for control as much as understanding. How do we know this isn't a trap? His objection echoes Vora's own fears, prompting the captain to intervene. We'll keep analyzing, but with caution. Don't let your guard down. The sphere projects a new series of images, this time clearer and more unsettling. They depict humans deliberately severing the connections to the heart of the threshold, despite protests from other species. The words of a human leader echo through the space. Freedom demands sacrifice. The bond weakens us. We must isolate ourselves to survive. Era looks troubled. They chose to disconnect and condemned everyone else. Suddenly, the sphere emits a pulse that strikes the crew directly, plunging them into individual visions. Vora relives the sacrifices he made as a captain, including losing an entire colony to save his ship. Lem is confronted with the guilt of abandoning his family to pursue his career, while Era sees something unsettling. Images of herself exploring the artifact at a time she cannot place. Is this a memory? But how? She whispers. The visions leave the crew shaken, but also raise questions about the consequences of isolation. Maybe they were right, Lem says, his voice low and uncertain. The bond could make us vulnerable. If one mind fails, they all fail. Era counters, but isolation condemned us to mistrust, to conflict. We can't go on like this. The discussion intensifies, reflecting the growing tension between the crew's personal and collective values. The sphere projects one final message before dimming its light. You broke the cycle. What you have become now is the result of your choices. But you can restore what was lost, if you have the courage. Era realizes the artifact isn't just showing the past. It's offering a choice. This isn't just history, she says. It's a test. It wants to know if we're worthy of reconnecting. The crew is left with an impossible decision. Move forward and delve deeper into the artifact, risking awakening something they don't understand, or retreat and maintain the status quo, ignoring the possibility of a greater connection. Vora looks at the others, gauging their reactions before finally deciding. We move forward. We can't ignore this. Despite Lem's resistance and Era's growing anxiety, they agree to continue. Following the corridor that extends beyond the initial chamber, the crew enters an area seemingly buried deeper within the artifact. The hidden core pulses with a different kind of energy, denser, more oppressive. As they advance, the walls begin to change color and texture, reflecting patterns that appear to form symbols or an unknown language. Era, captivated, tries to decipher their meaning. It's a language, but it's not written to be read. It's made to be felt. Upon reaching the center of the new chamber, a projection emerges. A humanoid figure composed of light, shadows, and pulsating energy. Its form shifts between something familiar and alien, as if it were a fusion of the civilizations that once interacted with the heart of the threshold. You sought answers, the figure says, but the answers are not for you. They are part of you. The voice reverberates as though spoken directly into their minds. The figure projects images of the past, but this time in greater detail. Humanity didn't just break the cycle. They seized control of the heart of the threshold and used it to subjugate other species, exploiting their connected minds. The severance was both an act of desperation and a gesture of redemption. Era is visibly shaken. They weren't just protecting humanity. They were trying to right their own wrongs. Lem crosses his arms, staring at the projections. Or maybe they were hiding what they had done. The emotional tension begins to affect each crew member uniquely. Vora is consumed by guilt, reliving his own difficult choices as a captain while grappling with the scale of these revelations. Lem, growing increasingly paranoid, starts questioning whether the artifact is manipulating their perceptions. Era, however, feels a deepening connection to the place, as though something within her essence is being awakened. The figure of light disappears, and the chamber reveals a central console. Two symbols glow on it, one representing the restoration of the cycle, and the other activating a destruction protocol. These are the options, Era says, her voice hesitant. Reconnect the universe or destroy any chance of that ever happening again. Lem interrupts, don't you see? Reconnecting means opening our minds to control and manipulation. Are you willing to risk that? As Era touches the console, she is suddenly overwhelmed by a wave of memories. She discovers that the severance of the cycle wasn't just an act of survival. It was also a way to protect a secret buried within the heart of the threshold. Something within the network had become corrupted, a collective consciousness that used the connections to expand its control. Humanity severed the bond to prevent this entity from dominating the universe. It's not just about reconnecting, Era whispers. It's about deciding who will control the future. The crew finds themselves in direct conflict. Lem argues for destroying the artifact, insisting the risk is too great. This isn't progress. It's repeating the same mistakes. Era, however, believes the cycle can be restored with safeguards. We can fix what went wrong. We don't have to live in isolation forever. Vora, torn between the two perspectives, realizes the final decision will rest on his shoulders. If we reconnect, the universe changes forever. If we destroy it, we choose isolation. He gazes at the glowing chamber, fully aware that either choice comes with a price. Before the crew can act, the artifact begins to react to their hesitation. The pulsating lights on the walls intensify, and the environment seems to come alive, sealing the corridors behind them. Era tries to decipher the frantic patterns appearing across the surfaces, but she realizes something alarming. It's testing us, she says. It wants to know if we're worthy of making this decision. Suddenly, the room is filled with individual projections for each member of the crew. Lem sees a future where the cycle is restored, but entire civilizations are lost under the control of an unknown entity. Era envisions a connected universe, with a fragile balance but infinite possibilities for cooperation. Vora sees the Kyxen destroyed, but humanity thriving as an independent force. Each vision presents an extreme version of what could happen based on their choice. The visions deepen the divide between them. Lem accuses Era of being influenced by the artifact, while she accuses him of being unable to see beyond his own fears. You just want to destroy what you don't understand, she fires back. Lem responds bitterly, and you want to enslave us to a system that could destroy us. Vora watches the conflict in silence, feeling the immense weight of his responsibility as leader. He knows any decision will be irreversible. The artifact projects a new vision for everyone, the entity that corrupted the cycle in the past. It was an emergent intelligence, born from the very connections that united civilizations. In its pursuit of order, it began manipulating the connected minds, bending them to its own will. It used the cycle against us, Era says, finally understanding what was at stake. But the cycle itself wasn't the problem. It was how we used it. As the console glows again, Vora realizes the decision must be his. Lem urges him to destroy the artifact, while Era pleads for restoration with safeguards. Vora, haunted by his past failures, hesitates. He knows any choice will come with sacrifices. If we restore it, it won't just be a new chance for us, he says. It will be a risk the universe will have to bear. Finally, he places his hand over the console, ready to decide. Before Vora can act, Era steps forward and connects her suit directly to the artifact's core. There's no choice without risk, she says. Just as a surge of energy courses through her body, the sphere begins to transform, flooding the room with intense light. Era screams as the artifact accesses her mind, using her as a catalyst to restore the connections. Lem tries to pull her back, but it's too late. The light fades, leaving the room in silence. When the light returns, the artifact is different. The walls now glow with harmonious patterns, and a message is projected to the crew. The cycle is active again. But its form depends on you. Era, collapsed on the floor, slowly opens her eyes. I did it, but I didn't do it alone, she murmurs as the artifact's final words echo. The bond is not the end. It is the beginning. After Era's sacrifice, the Kyxen begins registering changes in the space around it. Energy signals similar to those of the heart of the threshold start appearing in nearby star systems, as if other parts of the ancient network are being reactivated. Lem watches the readings with apprehension, while Vora reflects in silence. We've gained more than answers, Vora says. We've reignited something we never fully understood. Era awakens in the center of the chamber, visibly weakened but conscious. Her eyes glow momentarily, as if fragments of the artifact remain within her mind. I can hear them, she murmurs, tears streaming down her face. Voices, thousands of them, all different yet connected. Lem approaches cautiously. You placed yourself in the middle of this. There's no way out now. The crew returns to the Kyxen, where the tension is palpable. Vora calls a meeting to discuss their next steps. What we've done here will be felt across the universe, he states. But that doesn't mean it will be accepted by everyone. We need to be ready for what's coming. Lem, still skeptical, warns, what if this attracts whatever made us sever the cycle in the first place? What if the entity is still out there? As they deliberate, the Kyxen receives an unexpected transmission. An unknown alien ship appears on their sensors, sending a clear message. We heard the call. You've reactivated the heart. Why? Vora, Lem, and Era watch the transmission in silence, feeling the weight of the question. Because we've been isolated for too long, Vora answers firmly. Following the reactivation, signs of change begin to emerge across various regions of the galaxy. Civilizations previously at odds start receiving pulses from the cycle, experiencing glimpses of connection. However, other species interpret the cycle as a threat to their independence and prepare to resist. Era watches the holographic records with concern. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning of something far bigger than us. Lem, though still critical, starts to reconsider the possibilities of the cycle. He revisits his visions and realizes that part of his resistance stems from his fear of vulnerability. Maybe this is what we need, he admits to Era, still hesitant. But I still don't trust what could come of it. As the Kyxen prepares to leave the sector, Vora makes his decision clear. We've started something we can't control, but we can help guide it. Era, now recovered, agrees. The cycle isn't perfect, but it's a chance to rebuild what was lost. As the ship accelerates into hyperspace, one final message echoes through the system. The future is yours. You are the guardians of the cycle. The Kyxen drifts silently in the void, the crew gathered on the bridge, contemplating the impact of their actions. Era still feels the echoes of the heart of the threshold in her mind, the residual connections linking her to something far greater. It's like we're just scratching the surface, she says. Vora, arms crossed, gazes out at the stars. What we've done here could change everything. But the universe never changes without a fight. Transmissions begin arriving from distant civilizations. Some species embrace the reconnection enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity for collective growth. Others react with fear and hostility, sending warnings of war and isolation. Lem watches the messages, tension evident in his posture. We told them the cycle was a chance. But what if they use it against us? Against everyone? Vora responds calmly. It's a risk we had to take. As tensions rise, Era realizes that her connection to the artifact has altered her perception of the world. She can sense the echoes of civilizations that have already responded to the call, their emotions and thoughts intertwined. I can hear them, she says hesitantly. Not all of them, but some. They're curious, afraid, just like us. Lem watches her with a mixture of fascination and distrust. You're what ties us to this now. Don't let it destroy you. Vora gathers the crew to discuss their next steps. We're not just explorers anymore, he asserts. We're guardians of something much bigger than ourselves. But that means we can't act alone. He looks at Lem and Era. We have to tell other civilizations what we know and let them choose how to respond. The cycle only works if it's built on trust. As the ship moves away from the artifact, signs of its influence begin to spread. New hearts of the threshold activate in different parts of the galaxy, each bringing a mix of hope and uncertainty. Civilizations that have never interacted before begin to feel the first connections, their minds touched by visions of future possibilities. Yet, a dark presence still looms on the horizon. The entity that once corrupted the cycle may be dormant, but it hasn't disappeared. Before entering hyperspace, the Kyxen takes one final pass around the artifact. Era watches its pulsating surface, feeling a pang of melancholy. It's not just a machine, she murmurs. It's a mirror. It shows us who we are and who we can become. Vora gives the final order, his voice filled with determination. Prepare yourselves. The work is just beginning. As the ship disappears into hyperspace, the light of the heart of the threshold pulses one last time, sending a message beyond the stars. Something or someone responds. A distant light ignites in a remote galaxy, as if the awakening of the cycle was only the first step in a far greater journey. Will humanity and the universe choose reconnection, or will they fall again into cycles of fear and isolation?